All right, let's dive in. Today, we're all about high-performance GPUs,
Oh yeah, the heavy hitters.
specifically the AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX
Yeah.
and the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080
The top contenders.
for anyone looking to conquer 4K
and even
and even 8K video generation and
yeah,
editing.
we're talking serious power here.
We've got articles,
Something good.
pricing comparisons,
All the good stuff.
to help you figure out which card is your perfect match.
It's gonna be a good one.
We're about to uncover some surprising facts
Right? Yeah.
about memory, power consumption,
And those
and those often overlooked features that
make a difference.
can make or break your video editing experience.
These are exciting times to be a content creator, that's for sure.
Let's kick things off
Right.
with a head-to-head specs showdown.
Love it.
The 7900 XTX comes packing a massive 24 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory,
Okay.
while the 4080 boasts 16 gigabytes of the faster GDDR6X.
So right away we see a difference there.
Right off the bat, that's a big decision point.
For sure. For sure.
More VRAM versus faster VRAM.
What's the catch? Well, it's fascinating, really, this trade-off.
What's the catch?
You got to consider,
Yeah.
imagine those massive 8K video files
Oh, yeah.
you're working with.
Huge.
The 7900 XTX is 24 gigabytes of VRAM.
Yeah.
Acts like a spacious highway,
Okay.
allowing those large files to move smoothly and quickly.
I like that analogy.
On the other hand,
Okay.
the 4080's GDDR6X
Yeah.
is like a super fast sports car,
Zipping.
zipping data around at lightning speed.
Okay.
So which one wins?
Yeah, which one?
It really depends.
Depends on your workflow.
If you're working with massive files and need that extra VRAM,
Yeah.
the 7900 XTX might be your winner.
Makes sense.
But if speed is your ultimate goal,
Got it.
the 4080's GDDR6X could be the better choice.
Okay, so it's not just about how UCH memory you have.
Right.
It's also about how that memory performs.
How it does its job.
What about those core counts?
Oh yeah, let's get into the cores.
I'm seeing a significant difference.
Yeah, you're gonna see some big numbers here.
907.28 CUDA cores
How about?
on the 4080
Okay.
versus
Mhm.
644 stream processors on the 7900 XTX.
Interesting.
Does that directly translate to better performance?
Well, it's
That simple?
not quite that straightforward.
Right.
Think of it like comparing apples and oranges.
I like that.
AMD and NVIDIA
Yeah.
use different architectures.
Okay.
So their core counts aren't directly comparable.
Okay.
While a higher core count generally means more processing power,
More power, yeah.
that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
There's more to it.
All right, so we've looked at the numbers.
And crunch the numbers.
But what do those specs actually mean for your video projects?
Right, let's get practical.
Let's talk resolution.
Yeah.
We're diving into the realm of
4K,
4K and 8K.
that's where it's at.
Resolutions that pack
An
an incredible amount of detail into every single frame.
Every pixel counts.
To give you some context,
Right.
4K resolution comes in at about 3840 by 2160 pixels.
That's a lot of pixels.
That's over 8 million pixels.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
And if that's not enough,
Hold on, we're going further.
8K
Buckle up.
doubles that in both dimensions.
Doubles it up.
7680 by 400 and 320 pixels, which translates to a mind-blowing
a mind blow.
33.2 megapixels
Per frame.
per frame.
It's amazing.
Wow, that's a lot of pixels.
That's a lot to process.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
Why would anyone need to edit in 8K?
Yeah, is it just bragging rights?
Is it just...
No, not at all. There's real value here.
Okay.
Imagine this.
Right.
They're editing a travel video.
Okay. Yeah.
And you want to zoom in
On a specific
a little detail without losing any quality.
Not getting all
Pixelated.
pixelated.
8K
Yeah.
gives you that flexibility.
Sure, I
To
can
you can zoom,
I can reframe
reframe your shots in post-production.
without sacrificing that sharpness.
It's like future-proofing your footage.
So it's like having this giant canvas to play with
Exactly.
in post-production.
We've got room to work.
You can create multiple 4K compositions
Yeah.
from a single 8K source.
Think about the possibilities.
That opens up
It's a whole new world.
a whole new world of creative possibilities.
8K is, it's still early days,
It's still early.
but it's the direction things are heading.
Yeah.
Editing in 8K now means you're ahead of the curve.
You're ahead of the game.
You're ready for the future.
That makes sense, but I imagine editing 8K requires some
absolutely.
serious hardware muscle.
Serious horsepower.
We're not talking about
Not your average laptop.
your average laptop here.
No, no, no.
Think of it this way.
Okay, I like analogies.
Editing 4K is like driving a sports car.
All right, I can see that.
It's fun and exciting, but it requires skill and precision.
You gotta know what you're doing.
8K is like piloting a spaceship.
Whoa, okay. Specialized training.
Specialized training and top-of-the-line equipment.
The best of the best.
To handle that level of power.
You're pushing the limits.
So we're talking...
Top-of-the-line CPUs.
Top-of-the-line CPU.
EQs with mountains of VRAM.
GPUs.
That could handle the load.
With mountains of VRAM.
Lightning-fast SSDs.
That can handle the load. Lightning-fast SSD.
Full shebang. You need it all working together.
All right, back to our contenders.
Okay.
How do these GPUs actually perform?
Let's see how they do.
When it comes to 4K and 8K.
A real test.
Which one takes the crown?
Well, looking at benchmarks.
Okay.
The RTX 4090, NVIDIA's current flagship, sits at the top for both 4K and 8K.
Okay, top of the line.
But here's the interesting part. Okay, what's the catch?
The 7900 XTX and the 4080 are right there in the high-performance tier.
They're up there.
Battling it out for the top spot.
They're neck and neck.
It's a close race.
In fact, I saw some benchmarks.
Oh, yeah?
Where the 7900 XTX actually beats the 4080.
Really?
In one 3D Mark test.
Interesting.
The 7900 XTX scored 29,246 points.
Okay.
While the 4080 came in at 28,063.
Not too far behind.
It might not seem like a huge difference, but in the world of GPUs...
Every little bit counts.
Every little bit counts.
Right.
And remember, those benchmarks are just one piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely.
We need to consider...
Other factors.
Like VRAM.
Encoding.
Decoding capability.
Yeah, those are important.
Right, we've already talked about VRAM.
We have.
But let's dive into encoding and decoding for a moment.
Okay, let's get technical.
These are crucial for working with 4K and 8K footage.
Thankfully, both cards support all the major codecs.
That's good.
Including HEVC, H.264,
the essential,
and AV1.
Gotta have those.
The essential tools for working with high-resolution video.
Couldn't do it without them.
But here's where things...
It's not always that simple.
...get a bit more nuanced.
There's more to the story.
We can talk about...
Software support.
Software support.
That can be a deciding factor.
Historically,
NVIDIA
has had a slight edge in this department.
They've had a bit of a lead.
Especially when it comes to...
Professional video editing.
Professional video editing applications.
Industry standard stuff.
However, AMD has been steadily improving.
They're catching up.
And that gap is definitely closing.
It's getting closer.
That's great to hear.
Competition is good.
But I think for many people...
The deciding factor?
The deciding factor will be price.
Yes, the bottom line.
And this is where AMD often steals the show.
They're known for that.
The 7900 XTX consistently comes in cheaper than NVIDIA's top-tier cards.
The flagships, even though it holds its own in terms of performance.
It's impressive.
That's true.
AMD often offers excellent price-to-performance ratios. You get a lot of bang for your buck.
And the 7900 XTX is a prime example.
It's a great option.
It's a compelling option for budget-conscious creators.
For sure.
Who don't want to compromise on performance.
You don't have to sacrifice quality.
Okay.
So
you've picked your GPU champion.
You've made your choice.
But the battle isn't over yet.
Oh, no. We're just getting started.
We need to build a system.
The whole system.
Around these powerhouses.
It's all connected.
First up, motherboards.
The foundation.
We're talking PCIe 4.0 or 5.0 compatibility here.
You gotta have that speed.
Optimal data transfer.
Optimal data transfer speeds for both GPUs.
All about the bandwidth.
Absolutely.
The motherboard is the foundation of your system.
It's got to be strong enough to handle the power and data flow of these high-end GPUs.
There's a lot to handle.
For the 7900 XTX, you'll want to look at motherboards with AMD X670E or B650E chipsets.
Those are the good ones.
And on the NVIDIA side,
Z690,
Z790, and X670E chipsets are all compatible with the 4080.
So you got options.
Remember, the chipset acts like the brain of the motherboard.
It's the control center.
Managing the communication.
Between all the different parts.
Yes, different components.
Making sure everything talks to each other.
Choosing the right chipset is crucial.
Absolutely.
For ensuring smooth and efficient operation.
Can't skimp on that.
And speaking of crucial components,
oh, there's more.
let's talk CPUs.
The heart of the system.
You need
something powerful.
Something equally powerful.
To keep up with those GPUs.
To keep up with these GPUs from AMD.
Yeah.
The Ryzen 7800X 3D.
Solid choice.
Or the Ryzen 9 7950X.
Even more power.
Are both excellent options.
Those are workhorses.
And on the Intel side, you could go with a Core i7 13700K.
Another good one.
Or a Core i9 13900K.
Top of the line.
These are
the heavy hitters.
The workhorses that will handle all the heavy lifting.
They'll do the hard work.
Ensuring your video editing experience is smooth and responsive.
No lag.
Don't skimp on the CPU.
It's worth the investment.
It's the heart of your system.
Absolutely.
And a weak CPU,
it'll hold you back.
Will bottleneck the performance of even the most powerful GPU.
Even with the best GPU.
Next up is the power supply unit.
Keeping the lights on.
The unsung hero.
The unsung hero, for sure.
Of any high-end build.
Gotta have a good one.
For the 7900 XTX,
you're
looking at a minimum of 800 watts.
That's a lot of power.
Ideally, you'll want to go for a 1000-watt PSU.
Even better.
With an 80+ gold or platinum rating.
For efficiency.
For maximum efficiency.
You don't want to waste power.
And for the 4080, you can get away with a 750-watt PSU.
A little less power hungry.
But again, I recommend opting for 850 or 1000.
Just to be safe.
Just to have that extra headroom.
You want that extra power on top.
Think of the PSU as the fuel source for your system.
It's what keeps everything running.
A high-quality PSU delivers clean and stable power to all your components.
Keeping everything happy.
Ensuring they run smoothly and reliably.
No hiccups.
And to keep those components
from overheating.
From turning your PC into a space heater.
Yeah, we don't want that.
We need serious cooling.
Absolutely.
High-end air coolers, like the Noctua NHD15.
A classic.
Or the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4.
Another great option.
Are excellent choices.
They'll keep things cool.
Offering fantastic performance and relatively quiet operation.
You don't want a jet engine in your PC.
These air coolers are like giant heat sinks.
They are.
That draw heat away.
From those hot components.
From the components.
And dissipated into the air.
And dissipated into the surrounding air.
Keeping everything nice and cool.
They're a great option if you're looking for an affordable and effective cooling solution.
To get the job done. Or if you want to go all out.
If you're feeling adventurous, you can go for a 240 millimeter.
Or even a
360 millimeter.
Corsair liquid cooler.
Liquid cooling is the way to go for serious performance.
The brands like
Corsair,
NZXT,
Arctic.
And Arctic make some fantastic options.
A lot of great choices out there.
These coolers use a closed-loop system.
Yeah, it's a closed system.
Filled with liquid coolant.
Keeps everything flowing.
Circulate.
Between the water block.
Between a water block on your component.
And the radiator.
And a radiator with fans.
It's a very efficient system.
The radiator dissipates the heat.
Keeping those temps down.
Keeping your GPU cool.
So you can push it to the limit.
And operating at peak performance.
That's what we want.
So it's like having...
It's like a miniature water cooling system.
A miniature water cooling system inside your PC.
Right, in your case.
Keeping those temperatures in check.
Even under heavy load.
Even under the most demanding workloads.
It can handle it.
And they look pretty slick, too.
Oh, yeah, they look awesome.
With those sleek radiators and RGB lighting.
You gotta have the RGB.
For high-end GPUs.
Okay.
Like the 7900 XTX and 4080.
Yeah.
What size radiator would you recommend?
I'd recommend a 240 millimeter.
Okay.
Or a 360 millimeter radiator. They offer excellent cooling performance.
They can handle.
And they can handle the heat these cards generate.
The heat.
No problem.
And there are a lot of
reputable brands out there.
Right?
Oh yeah, Corsair, NZXT, Arctic.
Oh yeah.
They all make excellent AIO coolers.
So when it comes to choosing...
So when you're deciding...
Between air and liquid cooling.
What are the key factors?
What are the key factors to consider?
Budget's a big one.
Budget.
Liquid coolers tend to be more expensive. More expensive, yeah.
Than air coolers.
Yeah.
So if you're on a tight budget.
On a tight budget.
Air cooling might be the way to go.
But if you're willing to spend a bit more.
But if you want the
ultimate performance.
Liquid cooling is the way to go.
Liquid cooling is the way to go.
Exactly.
Liquid cooling generally offers better performance.
Especially for overclocking. It's also quieter. Than air cooling.
Because the fans
don't have to work as hard.
They can
spin slower.
Ooh.
So liquid cooling for silence and performance.
Liquid cooling for silence and performance.
Air cooling for affordability and simplicity.
It's a trade-off.
And of course,
aesthetics matter.
Aesthetics matter.
Some people prefer the look of a big air cooler.
That massive
heat sink.
He said.
Others love the sleekness of a liquid cooler.
It's all about
It's a personal choice.
personal preference. Whatever looks good to you.
Okay, so we've covered motherboards,
Power supplies.
and cooling.
We're building a system here.
What else
What else do we need?
do we need to round out?
To round out our high-end build.
Our high-end build.
What about RAM and storage?
RAM and storage.
Those are crucial too.
You're right.
We can't forget about those.
We can't forget about those.
RAM is like the short-term memory,
The short-term memory.
where it stores the data it needs to access quickly.
And when you're working with
And when you're doing
video editing,
high-resolution video
you
editing,
need plenty of it.
you need a lot of RAM.
So how much RAM?
How much are we talking about?
How we're talking about for a system built around the 7900 XTX or 4080
Well,
for 4K
for 4K video editing,
video editing,
16 gigabyte is a good starting point.
16 gigabyte. Okay.
But if you're planning on working with 8K footage,
If you're going 8K,
I'd recommend bumping that up
bump it up
to at least 32 gigabits.
at least 32.
Maybe even 64 gigabit if your budget allows.
If you can swing it,
The more RAM you have,
the more RAM,
the smoother your video editing experience will be.
smoother. Yeah.
Especially when working with large and complex projects.
Makes sense.
More RAM means less time waiting
Less waiting.
for things to load
And more time.
and more time focusing on your creative work.
Focusing on what matters.
That's what it's all about. And let's not forget about storage.
Let's not forget about storage.
This is where you store everything.
Yes,
Your
right.
operating system, your applications,
You store all those
massive video files.
massive video files.
And for video editing,
We're talking SSDs all the way.
we're talking SSDs.
Solid state drives. They're the standard for high performance PCs.
SSDs or solid state drives
Yeah.
are those
Just for fast.
super fast storage devices
Moving parts.
that have become the standard for high performance PCs.
High performance PCs.
Absolutely.
Significantly faster.
Significantly faster than traditional hard drives.
Because they have no moving parts.
Because they have
All
only
electronic.
pure speed.
That speed
Yeah,
is essential for working with high resolution video.
especially for high-res video.
Ensuring
Smooth playback.
smooth.
Faster rendering times.
Faster rendering times.
Quicker loading.
And quicker loading of large files.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So which type of SSD should we be looking at
Which type of SSD
for our 4K and 8K editing rigs?
should we be looking at for
There are two main types
our 4K and 8K editing rigs?
to consider. SATA and NVE,
SATA?
SATA SSDs, are more affordable,
Okay.
but they're slower
But slower.
than NVM SSDs. NVM SSDs use the PCIe interface,
NVMe SSDs.
which offers much higher bandwidth
Okay.
than SATA.
So that means resulting in significantly faster read and write speed.
Yeah, much faster.
So if speed is your top priority,
If you need the speed,
NVM is the way to go.
NVM is the way to go.
And when
It comes to storage capacity,
storage capacity,
it really depends
it really depends.
on how much footage you're working with,
How much footage,
how long your videos will be.
how long your videos are.
But for serious video editors,
For serious editors,
working with 4K and 8K footage,
working with 4K and 8K,
I'd recommend getting at least a 2 TB NVMe SSD
2 TB for 4K.
for 4K editing rig,
Okay.
and at least a 4 TB NVMe SSD for 8K.
And 4 TB
For 8K,
for 8K.
you need that extra space. Those high-capacity SSDs.
High capacity SSDs
They can get pricey.
can get pretty pricey.
They can.
Can't they?
But prices have been coming down
Prices have been coming down.
in recent years.
And
Investment is worth it
investment is worth it if you want
if you want a smooth.
an efficient video editing experience.
It's worth it in the long run. Okay, so we've covered
Motherboards.
power supplies,
So
cooling RAM,
RAM.
and storage.
We've covered a lot.
That's a lot of information.
A lot of information to process.
We've thrown a lot at you.
But we're not quite done yet.
There's more.
There's more to explore.
We've talked a lot about the technical stuff,
We've talked a lot about
but let's not forget about the human element,
technical aspects of the build.
your workflow.
But personal preferences,
not forget about the human element,
those are important
your
too.
workflow and personal preferences.
They can make a big difference.
Are just as important.
As the specs on paper.
As the specs on paper.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a great point.
So what are some things people should think about?
Welcome back. We've covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground, but there's always more to explore.
Let's dig deeper.
Let's go deeper.
Into the heart.
The heart of it all.
Of any high-performance PC.
On a performance PC.
The motherboard.
The motherboard.
Specifically.
Specifically, let's talk about
the power delivery system.
Its power delivery system.
Something that often gets overlooked.
Something that often gets overlooked.
But it's absolutely crucial.
But it's absolutely crucial for getting the most out of
those powerful GPUs.
Those powerful GPUs.
It's like the circulatory system of your PC.
Yeah.
Making sure there's a steady, reliable flow of power to all the vital components.
It's circulatory system of your PC.
We're talking about the VRM.
The VRM?
Or voltage regulator module.
Voltage regulator module.
A critical component.
Critical component.
That converts and regulates the power.
That converts and regulates the power.
From your power supply to the CPU and GPU.
From your power supply to the CPU and GPU.
Man, now we know.
We know the RX 7900 XTX.
The RX 7900 XTX.
Is a bit more power hungry. Than the RTX 4080.
More power hungry than the RTX 4080? With a TDP of 355 watts.
With a TDP.
Versus 320 watts.
355 watts versus 320 watts.
Does that mean
we need to pay extra attention?
We need to pay extra attention to the VRM.
To the VRM.
When choosing a motherboard for the 7900 XTX.
When choosing a motherboard for the 7900 XTX.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
A robust VRM is essential for both cards.
Robust.
But even more so for the 7900 XTX.
VRM is essential for both cards, but...
Think of it like this.
Even more so.
A weak VRM is like trying to power a sports car.
7900 XTX.
With a lawnmower engine.
Think of it like this.
It might work for a while.
A weak VRM.
But you're not going to get optimal performance.
It's like trying to power a sports car with a lawnmower engine.
And you risk damaging your components in the long run.
It might work for a while.
So we want to avoid that.
But you're not going to get optimal performance, and you risk damaging your components in the long run.
Okay, so what should we be looking for?
Okay, so what should we be looking for in a
motherboard's VRM?
The motherboard's VRM to ensure it can handle?
To make sure it can handle these power-hungry GPUs. Break it down for us.
Power-hungry GPUs.
All right. There are a few key things to keep in mind.
Break it down for us.
First,
okay,
the number of power phases.
The number of
more power phases
relief.
Are like having more lanes on a highway.
More lanes on a highway.
It allows for smoother
okay,
and more efficient power delivery.
Smoother and more efficient power delivery, reducing stress on the components.
Reducing stress on the components.
So more phases?
More phases are better.
Are better.
Generally, yes.
Generally.
But it's not just about quantity.
It's not just about quantity. It's also...
It's about quality.
About quality.
High-end motherboards use top-notch components.
Top-notch components in their VRMs.
Like Dramos MOSFETs.
Dramos MOSFETs.
These are special transistors.
These are special transistors designed to
handle high current. With minimal power loss.
Keeping
things cool and efficient. It's like having a team of highly trained electricians.
So it's like having a team of highly trained electricians.
Managing the power flow in your PC.
Making
sure everything runs smoothly.
In your PC, ensuring everything.
And without any hiccups.
Runs smoothly and without any hiccups.
Exactly.
And
of course, cooling is essential too.
Look
for motherboards.
Cooling is essential too.
With robust heat sinks.
Look for motherboards with...
Covering the VRMs.
Robust heat sinks covering the VRMs.
Some even have active cooling with small fans.
And
keep those temperatures in check.
With small fans to keep those temperatures in check.
Yeah, we want to keep things cool.
That makes sense.
So a good cooling system.
A good cooling system keeps those VRMs from overheating. And ensures
stable power delivery.
Stable power delivery to the CPU and GPU. Precisely.
And here's another thing to consider.
Overclocking. If you're thinking
if you're going to push your GPU to its limits.
Pushing your GPU to its limits.
A better VRM can be the difference.
Between
stable performance and constant crashes.
It
provides the extra headroom.
You need.
To
safely increase the voltage and clock speeds of your GPU.
Squeezing out. Squeezing out every last bit of performance.
Every last bit of performance.
That's what we want.
So a well-designed VRM.
So well-designed VRM.
Not only improves performance. But
also potentially reduces power consumption.
And extends
the lifespan
of your components. It's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
It's all about efficiency and stability.
It's all about...
Okay, so we've covered the importance of VRMs.
Efficiency and stability.
Now let's get specific.
Okay, so we've covered the importance of VRMs.
What are some motherboard recommendations?
Now let's...
For both AMD and Intel systems.
So let's start with AMD.
What are some motherboard recommendations for?
For the 7900 XTX.
Both AMD and Intel systems.
The ASRock X670E Steel Legend is a fantastic option.
Let's start with AMD.
It has a robust 16+2+1 phase VRM design.
They're the 7900 XTX.
With a 60 amp capacity.
The ASRock X670E Steel Legend.
That's a serious power delivery system.
Is a fantastic option.
It's built for power.
It has a robust.
The Gigabyte X670E ARS Master.
16+2+1 phase VRM design with a 60 amp capacity.
Is another beast. It boasts a 16+2+2 phase VRM.
Sounds impressive. What?
And some seriously impressive cooling solutions.
How about other options?
If you're planning on overclocking.
The Gigabyte X670E AORS Master this one might be your best bet.
Another beast.
It's ready to push the limits.
It boasts a 16+2+2 phase VRM.
And for folks on a budget.
And some seriously impressive cooling solutions.
The MSI PRO B650MA.
If you're planning on overclocking,
offers a solid 8-phase VRM.
This one might be,
with decent cooling,
your best bet.
All at a more affordable price point.
And for folks,
it's a great option for budget-conscious builders
on a budget
who still want reliable power delivery.
The MSI PRO B650MA offers
for their 7900 XTX.
Solid 8-phase VRM with decent cooling.
You don't have to break the bank.
All at a more affordable price point.
To get good performance.
It's a great option for budget-conscious.
Okay, so plenty of choices for AMD fans.
Builders who still want reliable power.
But what about those rocking Intel CPUs?
Delivery for their 7900 XTX.
What motherboards pair well with the RTX 4080?
Okay, so plenty of choices for AMD fans.
If you're going with an AMD motherboard for the 4080.
But what about those rocking Intel CPUs?
The ASRock X670E Taichi Carrara is a solid choice.
What motherboards?
It offers a good balance of features and price.
Pair well with the RTX 4080.
Without compromising on power delivery capabilities.
If you're going with
and if you're all in on Team Intel.
AMD motherboard for the 4080. The ASRock X670E.
For both CPU and motherboard.
Taichi Carrara is a solid choice.
Then you've got some fantastic options too.
It offers a good...
The Asus Arshu Strix Z690i Gaming Wi-Fi.
Balance of features.
Is a great choice if you're building a compact ITX system.
And price without compromising on...
It's small, but mighty.
Power delivery capabilities.
With excellent power delivery and top-notch networking capabilities.
And what if I'm all in on...
I love those tiny but powerful builds.
Team Intel for both.
They pack a punch.
CPU and motherboard.
And a compact form factor.
Then you've got...
But for those who want the best of the best.
Some fantastic options too.
If you're not concerned about budget.
The Asus ROG Strix Z690i.
The Gigabyte Z790 AORS Master is hard to beat.
Gaming Wi-Fi.
It's loaded with features.
It's a great choice if you're building a compact ITX system.
And it has a power delivery system.
It's small but mighty.
That can handle pretty much anything you throw at it.
With excellent power delivery and top-notch networking capabilities.
And what about a more balanced option?
I love.
The MSI MPG Z690 Edge Wi-Fi DDR4 is a great choice.
Those tiny but powerful builds.
It's packed with features.
They pack a punch.
And it delivers solid performance.
Instead of compact.
Without breaking the bank.
Form factor.
A good value.
But for those who want the best.
Okay, so we've got recommendations for every budget and build style.
Of the best, what would you recommend?
But beyond specific models?
If you're not concerned about budget.
What are some key things to keep in mind?
A Gigabyte Z790 AORS Master is hard.
When choosing a motherboard,
to beat.
Compatibility is crucial.
It's loaded with features.
Make sure the motherboard you choose supports PCIe 4.0 or 5.0.
And has a power delivery system.
For optimal GPU performance.
That can handle pretty much anything you throw at it.
We've already talked about the importance of a robust VRM.
And what about...
Especially if you're planning on overclocking.
More balanced.
And don't forget about form factor.
ATX.
ATX. is the standard size.
The MSI MPG Z690 Edge Wi-Fi DDR4 is?
But micro ATX and mini ITX are great for smaller builds.
A great choice.
Consider how much space you have in your case. And what other expansion cards you might need.
With features and delivers solid performance.
It's all about finding the right balance
without breaking the bank.
between features, performance, and budget.
Okay, so we've got
Speaking of balance,
recommendations for every budget.
let's talk about those integrated features
build style.
on the motherboard, like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
But beyond specific models, what are
They're convenient, but do they actually drain a significant amount of power?
some key things to keep in mind
It's a valid concern,
when choosing a motherboard?
but with modern high-end motherboards,
Compatibility is crucial.
the impact is actually quite minimal.
Make sure the motherboard you choose
We're talking about maybe 1 to 3 watts for Wi-Fi
supports PCIe 4.0
and less than 1 watt for Bluetooth
or 5.0
when they're
for
active.
optimal GPU performance.
So not a major power drain.
We've already talked about
Nope, not at all.
the importance
These newer wireless standards are much more power efficient
of a robust VRM,
than their predecessors.
especially if you're planning
Plus, motherboard manufacturers
on overclocking.
have really stepped up their game
And don't forget,
when it comes to optimizing power management
yeah,
for integrated features.
form factor.
Those power-saving modes actually work,
ATX is the standard size,
selectively enabling or disabling those features
but micro ATX
when they're not in use.
and mini ITX are great for smaller builds.
So you don't have to worry about them draining your battery
Consider how much space you have in your case.
when you're not using them.
And what other expansion cards you might need.
It sounds like we don't need to stress.
It's all about finding the right balance
About integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth,
between
draining our system's power.
features, performance, and budget.
Exactly.
Just liking a balance.
The convenience they offer far outweighs
Let's talk about
the tiny amount of power they consume.
those integrated features on the motherboard.
Okay.
Like Wi-Fi
So we've covered motherboards and power delivery in depth.
and Bluetooth.
But to keep those components running cool
They're
and efficiently, we need to talk about cooling solutions.
convenient, but do they actually
Actually,
drain
We're talking about keeping those high-end GPUs
a significant amount
from turning your PC into a sauna.
of power?
We don't want that.
It's a valid concern.
Let's break down the options.
But with modern,
We've got air coolers and liquid coolers.
high-end motherboards,
What are the pros and cons of each?
impact
Air coolers are generally more affordable
is actually
and easier to install.
quite minimal.
They rely on large heat sinks and fans
We're talking about maybe
that draw heat away from the components.
1 to 3 watts for Wi-Fi.
High-end air coolers
And less
like the Noctua NHD15
than 1 watt.
or the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4
For Bluetooth,
are excellent choices,
when they're active,
offering fantastic performance
so not a major power drain?
and relatively quiet operation.
No,
You don't want a jet engine in your PC.
not at all.
Liquid cooling
These newer wireless standards are much
takes things to the next level.
more power efficient.
AIO or all-in-one liquid cooler
And they're becoming increasingly popular.
predecessors.
They use a closed-loop system
Pause.
filled with liquid coolant
Motherboard manufacturer.
that circulates between a water block mounted on your GPU
I've really stepped up their game
and a radiator with fans.
when it comes to
The radiator dissipates the heat,
optimized
keeping your GPU cool
power management
and operating at peak
for
performance.
integrated features. It's like having a miniature water cooling system
Those power-saving modes
right inside your PC,
actually work,
keeping those temperatures in check.
selectively enabling
Even under the most demanding workloads,
or disabling
they can handle the heat.
those features
And they look pretty slick, too,
when they're not in use.
with those sleek radiators and RGB lighting.
So you don't have to worry
You gotta have the RGB.
about them draining your battery
For high-end GPUs like the 7900 XTX and 4080,
when you're not using them.
what size radiator would you recommend?
Good to know.
I'd recommend a 240 millimeter or a 360 millimeter radiator.
It sounds
They offer excellent cooling performance,
like we don't need to.
and they can handle the heat these cards generate.
Stress.
No problem.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of reputable brands out there.
Integrated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Corsair, NZXT,
Okay.
Arctic.
Draining our systems.
They all make excellent AIO coolers
tower.
with a variety of features and price points.
Exactly.
So when it comes to choosing between air and liquid cooling,
The convenience.
what are the key factors to consider?
They offer far outweighs
Budget is a big one.
the tiny amount of power.
Liquid coolers tend to be more expensive than air coolers.
They consume.
So if you're on a tight budget,
okay,
air cooling might be the way to go.
So we've covered.
But if you're willing to spend a bit more,
motherboards and power delivery in depth.
For ultimate performance.
But to keep
Liquid cooling is the way to go.
those components.
Liquid cooling generally offers better performance.
Running cool.
Especially for overclocking.
Efficiently, we need to talk about cooling solutions.
And it's also quieter than air cooling.
Absolutely.
As the fans on the radiator don't have to work as hard.
We're talking about
So liquid cooling for silence and performance.
keeping those high-end GPUs.
Air cooling for affordability and simplicity.
Turning your PC into a sauna.
And of course, aesthetics matter too.
We don't want that.
Some people prefer the look of a massive air cooler.
Let's break down the options.
So with that huge heatsink.
We've got air coolers.
Others love the sleekness of a liquid cooler.
And liquid coolers.
With those RGB fans.
What are the pros?
It's all about personal preference.
And cons of each.
So we've covered motherboards, power supplies, and cooling.
Air coolers.
We're building a system here.
Generally,
What else do we need
more affordable.
to round out our high-end build?
And easier to install.
What about RAM and storage?
They rely.
Those are crucial too.
Oh.
We can't forget about those.
Large heat sinks.
RAM is like the short-term memory of your computer,
And fans.
where it stores the data it needs to access quickly.
To draw heat.
And when you're doing high-resolution video editing,
Oh, away from the components?
you need a lot of RAM.
High-end.
So how much are we talking?
Air coolers like
For a system built around the 7900 XTX or the 4080.
the Noctua NHD15,
Well, for 4K video editing,
Hmm.
16 GB is a good starting point.
the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4
But if you're planning on working with 8K footage,
are excellent choice.
I'd recommend bumping that up to at least 32 gigabit.
Offering.
Maybe even 64 gigabit.
Yeah.
If your budget allows.
Fantastic performance.
The more RAM you have,
relatively.
the smoother your video editing experience will be.
Quiet operation.
Especially when working with large and complex projects.
You don't want a jet engine in your PC.
More RAM means less time waiting for things to load
The cooling takes
and more time focusing on your creative work.
things to the next level.
That's what it's all about.
AIO, or all-in-one.
And let's not forget about storage.
Liquid coolers.
This is where you store everything. Your operating system, your applications,
Becoming increasingly
and of course, all those massive video files.
popular.
And for video editing,
They use
we're talking SSDs all the way.
a closed loop.
Solid-state drives.
System filled.
They're the standard for high-performance PCs.
With liquid coolant.
Significantly faster than traditional hard drives.
That circulates between a water block.
Because they have no moving parts.
Yeah. Mounted on your GPU and a radiator.
It's all electronic, pure speed.
With fans.
That speed is essential for working with high-resolution video.
The radiator
Especially for high-res video.
dissipates.
Ensuring smooth playback, faster rendering times.
The heat, keeping your GPU cool
And quicker loading of large files.
operating at peak
It makes a big difference.
performance.
So which type of SSD should we be looking at?
It's like
For our 4K and 8K editing rigs,
I'm a miniature.
there are two main types to consider.
Water coolers.
SATA and NVE.
System inside your
SATA SSDs are more affordable,
PC. Keep it.
but they're slower than NVMe SSDs. NVMe SSDs use the PCIe interface,
Temperatures.
which offers much higher bandwidth than SATA,
in check, even under.
resulting in significantly faster read and write speeds.
The most
Yeah, much faster.
demanding workloads.
So if you need the speed,
Hey.
NVMe is the way to go.
You can.
When it comes to storage capacity.
Big.
It really depends on how much footage you're working with, how long your videos will be.
Hey, look.
But for serious video editors working with 4K and 8K footage,
Pretty slick.
I'd recommend getting at least a 2 TB NVMe SSD for a 4K editing rig,
2.
and at least a 4 TB NVMe SSD for 8K.
Go sleep.
You need that extra space.
Those
Those high-capacity SSDs, they can get pricey,
like an RGB lighting.
but prices have been coming down in recent
Oh,
years,
high end.
and the investment's worth it.
GPUs like the 7900 XTX and 4080.
If you want a smooth and efficient video editing experience,
What size?
it's worth it in the long run.
Radiator.
Okay, so we've covered motherboards, power supplies, cooling, RAM, and storage.
Recommend.
We've covered a lot.
Okay.
That's a lot of information we've thrown at you.
Recommend a recommend.
But there's more. 240 millimeters.
This talked a lot about the technical stuff, but let's not forget about the human element.
A 360 millimeter.
Your workflow, your personal preferences.
Those are important too.
They offer.
They can make a big difference.
Excellent cooling.
As the specs on paper.
Performance, and they can handle the heat. So what are some things people should think about when it comes to their workflow problem?
First, what software do you use for video editing?
And there are.
Some applications are more resource intensive than others.
A lot of reputable brands.
And might have specific hardware requirements.
Yeah, fair.
So you need to make sure your system can handle it.
Corsair.
And some software might be better optimized for AMD GPUs.
NZXT.
While others might perform better with NVIDIA cards.
RTX.
It's worth doing some research to see what other video editors who use the same software recommend.
Excellent.
See what works best for them.
AIO coolers.
And beyond software, think about how you like to work.
A variety of.
Do you prefer a clean and minimalist setup?
Features?
Or do you need multiple monitors and tons of peripherals?
And price.
The physical layout of your workspace can have a big impact on your productivity and creativity. Comfortable and ergonomic setup can make a world of difference.
Thanks to choosing.
Absolutely. And don't forget about ergonomics. Make sure your chair, desk, and monitor are set up in a way that's comfortable for you.
Cooling.
Especially if you're spending hours editing video. You don't want to end up with back pain or eye strain.
Factors to consider.
We've covered the technical aspects of the budget, workflow considerations, and even ergonomics. What else is there? We've talked a lot about power consumption, but let's zoom in on one specific aspect that often gets overlooked. The power delivery system on the motherboard, specifically the voltage regulator module, or VRM.
To be more.
We've discussed this before.
But
it's so important that it's worth reiterating.
And air coolers.
The VRM is that crucial component that converts and regulates the power. That goes to the CPU and GPU, ensuring a stable and efficient flow of electricity.
Tight budget.
Exactly. And with these high-end GPUs, the VRM plays a crucial role in maintaining stable performance and preventing power-related issues. So to recap, what should we be looking for in a motherboard's VRM?
But if you're
the number of power phases is important.
Willing to.
More phases mean the power load is divided more evenly, reducing heat and stress on the components.
A bit.
But it's not just about the quantity of phases. It's also about the quality of the components used.
For ultimate.
High-quality components mean better efficiency and less heat generation. Exactly. And don't forget about cooling. VR.
Welcome back. We've explored a ton of information about these powerful GPUs.
Specs, benchmarks, components, you name it.
Even workflow considerations.
The whole 9 yards.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill everything.
Let's break it down.
We've discussed into actionable insight.
Make it real for everyone.
Right. So
let's recap those key takeaways.
The big picture.
We've been comparing the AMD Radeon RX 7900 XTX,
the AMD powerhouse,
and the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080.
The NVIDIA champion.
Both incredibly capable GPUs for 4K and even 8K.
Pushing the limits.
Content creation.
The 7900 XTX.
The 7900 XTX offers a significant VRAM advantage.
Oh yeah, that VRAM.
With its 24 GB of GDDR6 memory.
A game changer when working with those large 8K files.
Which is a game changer.
You can edit those massive projects
when working with
without worrying about slowdowns or bottlenecks.
Large 8K files.
It's a beast.
You can edit those massive projects
without worrying about.
The 4080 slowdowns boast 16 GB of the faster GDDR6X memory.
Or bottlenecks.
Which means faster data transfer speeds.
On the other hand, the 4080 boasts 16 gigabit.
Potentially leading to quicker rendering times and smoother playback.
Of the faster GDDR6X memory.
It's a speed demon.
Which translates to faster data transfer speeds.
And we can't forget those benchmarks.
Potentially leading to quicker rendering times and smoother playback.
The 7900 XTX holds its own against the 4080.
And we can't forget those benchmarks.
Even outperforming it in some tests.
The 7900 XTX holds its own.
Pretty impressive.
Against the 4080.
Especially considering its often more attractive price point.
Even outperforming.
I love that value.
In some tests.
But it's not just about raw power.
That's impressive considering its often more attractive price point.
We've emphasized.
But it's not just about raw power.
The importance of the entire ecosystem.
We've emphasized the importance of the
working together harmoniously.
The entire ecosystem working together harmoniously.
The motherboard, the power supply, the cooling system.
The motherboard, the power supply, the cooling system.
These are all critical components.
These are all critical components.
That can make or break your experience.
That can make or break your experience.
It's like assembling a world-class orchestra.
It's like assembling a world-class orchestra.
You need all the instruments to be in tune.
You need
and playing together seamlessly.
Instruments to be in tune and
create a masterpiece.
Playing together seamlessly to create a masterpiece.
Exactly. Just like an orchestra needs a conductor.
And just like
your system needs a robust power delivery system.
An orchestra needs a conductor.
Which is where the motherboard's VRM comes into play.
System needs a robust power delivery system.
We've spent a considerable amount of time.
Which is where the motherboard's VRM comes in.
Discussing VRMs.
We've spent a considerable...
It's because they are so crucial.
Amount of time discussing VRMs.
Especially for these power-hungry GPUs.
Because they are so crucial.
A well-designed VRM.
Especially for...
with adequate cooling.
Ensures a smooth and stable flow of power.
To the CPU and GPU.
A well-designed...
maximizing performance and longevity.
VRM with adequate cooling.
So when choosing a motherboard...
ensures a smooth
and don't skimp on the VRM.
Stable flow of power.
It's a critical component that often gets overlooked.
To the CPU and GPU, maximizing performance and longevity.
Your workflow and personal preferences should also guide your decisions.
So when...
the software you use, the physical layout of your workspace...
using a motherboard...
even ergonomics.
Don't.
These factors can significantly impact your productivity and creativity.
Skimp on the VRM.
It's all about finding what works best to you.
It's a critical component. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
A lot of information to digest.
But ultimately, the choice between the 7900 XTX and the 4080...
it comes down to... for specific needs and priorities.
Your specific needs and priorities.
Do you need a ton of VRAM for working with massive 8K files?
Do you need a ton? Is raw performance your top priority?
A VRAM for working with massive...
or is budget a major consideration?
8K files.
These are all important questions.
Is raw performance your top priority?
This deep dive has equipped you with the knowledge to make an informed decision.
Or is budget...
We've got the tools now to weigh the pros and cons.
Consideration.
To consider your workflow.
This deep dive.
And choose the GPU that best aligns with your creative goals.
Has equipped you with the...
and remember, technology is constantly evolving.
To make an informed decision.
What's cutting edge today might be commonplace tomorrow.
We've given...
so stay curious, keep exploring.
You the tools to...
and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Weigh the pros and cons. Consider your...
who knows, maybe in a few years...
workflow.
We'll be having a deep dive into 16K video editing.
Choose the GPU that best aligns...
until then.
with your creative goals.
Happy editing.
Here's one final thought to leave you with as you delve deeper...
sounds good.
into the world of 4K and 8K video.
See you next time.
Remember that technology is constantly evolving.
Take care.
What's cutting edge today might be commonplace tomorrow.
All right.
So stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Bye.
Until next time, happy editing.